She earned $250,000 per episode. A decade later, she could not pay her rent. That is the arc of Grace Under Fire, a show that burned so bright in the 1990s, it left scorch marks on almost everyone who stepped near its flame. Created by Chuck Lorre and produced by Carsey Werner, Grace Under Fire premiered on ABC on September 29, 1993, and became the highest-rated news series of its season overnight. Brett Butler starred as Grace Kelly, a divorced single mother and recovering alcoholic raising 3 children in a small Missouri town after leaving an abusive marriage. The premise drew from Butler's own life with an unflinching honesty that audiences had rarely seen in a half-hour comedy: addiction, domestic violence, class struggle, and the daily indignities of scraping by on a refinery worker's salary filled episodes that were somehow both raw and laugh-out-loud funny. 5 seasons and 112 episodes later, the show collapsed under the weight of its stars' personal demons, and ABC pulled the plug on February 17, 1998. What happened to the people who made this series matter is a story of reinvention, loss, resilience, and one tragedy that still echoes. Here is what happened to 8 members of the cast. Number 1 belongs to Dylan and Cole Sprouse, who were barely a year old when the show premiered in 1993. Born on August 4, 1992 in Arezzo, Italy, they shared the role of Patrick Kelly, Grace's infant son. California child labor laws limited how long an infant could remain on set, so the production used both twins to double the available filming time. Patrick was the youngest Kelly child, a baby whose scenes required little more than being held, carried, or placed in a crib while the adults around him unraveled. The Sprouse twins were too young to be directly affected by the chaos that consumed the show's later seasons. Their parents, both Americans who had been teaching English in Italy, moved the family back to California 4 months after the twins were born to pursue acting opportunities. Before Grace Under Fire, the twins appeared in national commercials, learning the rhythms of a set before they could speak in full sentences. The production treated the infants as interchangeable components of a single role, a standard industry practice that reduces children to logistics. While the adults around them fought over creative control and battled addiction, Dylan and Cole simply showed up, did their scenes, and went home. After Grace Under Fire ended, the twins became 2 of the most recognizable child actors of the 2000s. They co-starred in the Disney Channel series The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody from 2005 to 2008, and its spin-off, The Sweet Life on Deck from 2008 to 2011. Cole later starred in Riverdale from 2017 to 2023 and appeared in the 2024 film Lisa Frankenstein. Dylan enrolled at New York University, graduated from the Gallatin School of Individualized Study in 2015, and opened a meadery in Brooklyn called All Wise Meadery. Despite being on a show that collapsed around them, the Sprouse twins emerged as the most commercially successful members of the entire cast. Dylan married model Barbara Palvin in Hungary in 2023. Cole appeared in the 2024 film Lisa Frankenstein. Both are 33 years old and living in the Los Angeles area. Number 2 is Casey Sander, who was 37 when the show launched. Born July 6, 1956, Sander played Wade Swoboda, Grace's dependable next-door neighbor and the husband of her best friend Nadine. Wade was the stable center of a cast built around instability, a man whose decency made the surrounding chaos feel more extreme by contrast. Sander remained on Grace Under Fire for all 5 seasons. While other cast members left or were driven out by Brett Butler's behavior, Sander stayed through the cancellation without making public statements about the working conditions. As a supporting player on a star-driven vehicle, his per-episode salary was a fraction of Butler's, though exact figures were never made public. The disparity was built into the structure of the show itself. Grace Under Fire was not an ensemble. It was a vehicle for one comedian, and everyone else on set existed to support that comedian's performance. Even when the comedian could no longer reliably deliver one, the industry compensated the person creating the problems far more generously than the people enduring them. After the show ended, Sander worked consistently in television guest roles and recurring parts. His credits include Home Improvement, Tucker, Criminal Minds, Sons of Anarchy, Mad Men, Silicon Valley, and The Newsroom. He landed a recurring role on The Big Bang Theory as Bernadette's father Mike, beginning in 2012. Sonder played a police officer on 3 different sitcoms across 3 decades: The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Grace Under Fire, and The Big Bang Theory. The industry saw him as reliable enough to hand the same archetype to 3 separate times. Casey Sander is 69 years old and still working. Coming in at number 3, Julie White was 32 when the show premiered. Born June 4, 1961, in San Diego, California. She played Nadine Swoboda, Grace's sharp-witted neighbor and best friend, the person who said the things the audience was thinking before the audience thought them. White left Grace Under Fire after the 4th season. She cited Brett Butler's erratic behavior and substance abuse as the reason, and she did not return for the show's final season in 1997. Her departure made her one of 2 cast members to leave specifically because of Butler's conduct. The other was a 12-year-old boy. White reportedly continued to collect her salary after departing, a contractual arrangement that strongly suggests the production acknowledged the conditions that drove her out rather than treating her exit as a voluntary resignation. For a time after leaving, White struggled to find significant work, landing small parts in minor comedies that did not come close to matching her ability. The sitcom that should have launched her career instead stalled it for years. Then the stage found her. White won the Tony Award for Best Actress in a Play in 2007 for The Little Dog Laughed. She earned 3 more Tony nominations in 2015, 2019, and 2022. On screen, she played Judy Witwicky in 3 Transformers films, appeared in Lincoln and Michael Clayton, and guest starred on American Horror Story in 2023 and 2024. The show that pushed Julie White out of television pushed her toward the theater, where she built a career that no one from Grace Under Fire could match. She is 64 and based in New York City. Number 4 is Dave Thomas, the Canadian comedian who was already famous before Grace Under Fire existed. Born May 20, 1949, in St. Catharines, Ontario, Thomas was 44 at the show's premiere. He played Russell Norton, the town's bachelor pharmacist, and Grace's on and off love interest, a dry comedic presence who balanced the heavier storylines. Thomas was contractually locked into the show and could not leave. In a 2001 interview, he described the atmosphere on set after creator Chuck Lorre was pushed out following the 1st season. The remaining cast and crew were, in Thomas's words, all just trying to get through this, make the money, and get out with some shred of dignity and pride. Thomas also served as head writer, giving him a front-row seat to the production's collapse. 5 showrunners were pushed out during the show's 5-year run. Thomas watched each departure from the inside. Before Grace Under Fire, Thomas had co-founded SCTV with John Candy, Eugene Levy, Catherine O'Hara, and Rick Moranis, winning an Emmy Award for writing. He co-created the Mackenzie Brothers with Moranis and co-wrote, co-directed, and starred in the cult film Strange Brew in 1983. A man with that resume did not need Grace Under Fire on his credits. The show needed him far more than he needed it. After Grace Under Fire, Thomas continued voice acting, directing, and producing. He appeared on The Blacklist, Arrested Development, and Bones, voiced characters on The Simpsons and Corner Gas Animated, and ran the animation studio Animax Entertainment from Culver City, California. He was appointed a member of the Order of Canada in 2020. Thomas and Chuck Lorre both spoke at Tom Poston's funeral in 2007 at Hillside Memorial Park in Culver City. Poston had played Russell's father, Floyd Norton, in a recurring role on Grace Under Fire. The 2 men whose professional lives were most defined by the show's dysfunction reunited to eulogize a colleague they had genuinely loved. Dave Thomas is 76 years old and lives in Malibu, California. If you have watched this far and the stories of this cast have held your attention, subscribing to this channel means you will not miss the next one. Number 5 is Peggy Rea, and she is the first member of this cast who did not live to see the show remembered. Born March 31, 1921, in Los Angeles, Rea was 72 when the show premiered. She played Jean Kelly, Grace's disapproving former mother-in-law, the mother of Grace's abusive ex-husband Jimmy, and a recurring antagonist whose sharp tongue rivaled Grace's own. Rea was a journeyman character actress whose career stretched back to 1953, when she appeared in 4 episodes of I Love Lucy. Over the following decades, she played Rose Burton on The Waltons, Lulu Hogg on The Dukes of Hazzard, and Ivy Baker on Step by Step. 6 decades of steady work, and the industry never offered her a single leading role. She was the person producers called when they needed a warm, matronly presence to fill out a scene, valuable enough to employ, never valuable enough to build a show around. On Grace Under Fire, she appeared in 51 episodes across all 5 seasons. Her screen time increased in the final season after Julie White's departure. But by then the show was in freefall and the additional scenes were a consolation prize from a sinking ship. Before becoming an actress, Rea worked as a secretary to Arthur Freed, the MGM producer behind Singin' in the Rain. She left a front-row seat to Hollywood's golden age to step in front of the camera, and the camera gave her 6 decades of supporting parts. Peggy Rea died on February 5, 2011, at the age of 89, at her home in Toluca Lake, California, from complications of congestive heart failure. She is buried at Santa Barbara Cemetery in Santa Barbara, California. 10 years and 2 months passed before the cast lost another member. Number 6 is Walter Olkewicz, born May 14, 1948, in Bayonne, New Jersey. He was 45 when the show premiered and played Dougie Boudreau, one of Grace's co-workers at the oil refinery, a good-natured crew member whose scenes provided comic relief during the first 4 seasons. The industry did not end Olkewicz's career. A surgeon did. In 1999, a routine knee surgery led to an infection. That infection required a second surgery, which caused another infection. Over the next 2 decades, Olkewicz underwent 19 knee surgeries. The complications left him bedridden, wheelchair-bound, and unable to work. During his years of disability, he posted a series of YouTube video messages addressed to former colleagues, Steven Spielberg, Danny DeVito, Dolly Parton, Tommy Lee Jones, John Goodman, hoping someone from his decades of work would help with medical bills that the insurance system would not cover. In the videos, he spoke openly about his pain, about the 19 surgeries, about wanting to return to work despite knowing his body would not allow it. The messages were public pleas from a man who had appeared in over 100 productions and could not afford the consequences of a single procedure. His son, Zach Olkewicz, dropped out of high school to become his father's full-time caregiver. Zach later studied for the GED, scored a perfect 4,000, and was the only person among 569,000 California test takers to achieve that result. David Lynch brought Olkewicz back for one final role in the 2017 Twin Peaks revival. The scene was filmed entirely behind a bar to conceal the fact that Olkewicz could no longer stand. It was his first role in nearly 15 years, and it was his last. Zach went on to write the screenplay for the 2022 film Bullet Train, starring Brad Pitt. The son's career in Hollywood succeeded in ways his father's body would not allow. Walter Olkewicz died on April 6, 2021, at the age of 72, at his home in Reseda, California, from complications of infections related to his knee surgeries. He was cremated, and his ashes were returned to his family. Number 7 is Brett Butler herself, and her section could fill a documentary. Born Brett Anderson on January 30, 1958, in Montgomery, Alabama, she was 35 when the show premiered. Grace Kelly was a divorced single mother and recovering alcoholic raising 3 children in small-town Missouri, a character drawn from Butler's own stand-up material and life experience, with one critical difference. Butler never had children. The character she built her fame on was entirely fictional. Chuck Lorre created Grace Under Fire and was pushed out by Butler after the first season. In a 1995 Playboy interview, Lorre said, "Life is too short," and described the experience as exhausting. Lorre had come to the show fresh off 5 years of writing for Roseanne, which meant he had already survived one combative, star-driven sitcom. Grace Under Fire broke him in a single season. After Lorre's departure, 4 more showrunners either quit or were removed. Butler wanted total creative control of the show, and she got it, along with the total creative destruction that followed. Carsey Werner kept the show alive long enough to reach 100 episodes for syndication, selling rerun rights while the production burned through talent. The network gave the show a 2-season renewal specifically to hit that syndication minimum, not because anyone at ABC believed the production was sustainable. Butler's behavior worsened in the fourth and fifth seasons as her Vicodin addiction deepened. ABC canceled the series in February 1998 after her relapse caused production to halt for a month, and only 14 of 25 planned episodes were shot. The final season averaged a number 68 ranking. 3 years earlier, the show had been the fourth highest-rated series in the country. At her peak, Butler earned $250,000 per episode. She has publicly estimated her total earnings from the show at approximately $25 million. By 2021, her net worth was reported at $10,000. A friend launched a GoFundMe campaign that raised over $34,000 to prevent her eviction from a one-bedroom apartment in Los Angeles. She had lost the farm she purchased in Rome, Georgia, to unpaid mortgage payments years earlier. Charlie Sheen personally lobbied to get her a recurring role on Anger Management in 2012, and she has said that those paychecks barely covered rent. In a 2021 Hollywood Reporter interview, Butler took responsibility for the show's destruction. At the bloody bitter end, she said, "I really was difficult. I was out of my mind. Drugs will do that to you." She got sober in July 1998 and has stated she has not used drugs or alcohol since. Her most recent acting credit was a 2023 guest appearance on Fantasy Island. Brett Butler is 68 years old and lives in Los Angeles. 3 years and 3 months before Walter Olkewicz died, the cast had already lost its youngest member. Number 8 is Jon Paul Steuer, and his story is the reason this video exists. Born March 27, 1984, in Escondido, California, Steuer was 9 years old when the show premiered. He played Quentin Kelly, Grace's eldest son, the mischievous kid whose on-screen antics gave the audience something to smile about between the adult storylines. Steuer was already a working actor before Grace Under Fire. At age 6, he was cast as the Klingon child Alexander Rozhenko on Star Trek: The Next Generation in 1990 because he was the only child who could sit still for the 3 hours required to apply the facial prosthetics. The ability to endure something uncomfortable without complaint won him the role. A year later, the producers recast him because he had not grown fast enough. 2 shows replaced him before he turned 13. During his time on Grace Under Fire, there were allegations of inappropriate behavior involving Brett Butler and Jon Paul Steuer, who was around 12 years old at the time. According to reports, an incident occurred that led his mother to remove him from the show. He exited the series after the 3rd season in 1996. After leaving, Steuer attempted to continue acting and auditioned for other roles. However, much of the attention he received from producers and journalists focused on the controversy rather than his talent. The constant association with that situation made it difficult for him to move forward in the industry, and he stepped away from acting entirely by the age of 13. Steuer moved to Denver, Colorado, in 2003, where he started a glam punk band called Kill City Thrillers, performing under the name Johnny P. Jules. Around 2005, the band relocated to Portland, Oregon, and continued until it quietly dissolved in November 2009. After that, he spent several years working different service jobs, including as a bartender, server, and line cook. In March 2015, he partnered with a chef to open a vegan restaurant in Portland called Harvest at the Bindery. For him, it was an effort to build something stable after years of moving between jobs. During this time, he also performed as a DJ and played with a punk band called Problems. Jon Paul Steuer passed away on January 1, 2018, at the age of 33 in Portland, Oregon. His death was later ruled a suicide by local authorities. His band, Problems, shared the news publicly, and the restaurant eventually closed. There is no publicly recorded burial location for him. His memorial listings do not include details about a cemetery or final resting place. He remains the youngest member of the Grace Under Fire cast to pass away, and the only one whose resting place is not publicly known. 5 people connected to this cast are dead. Charles Hallahan, who played Bill Davis in the first season, died of a heart attack on November 25, 1997, while the show was still on the air. He is buried at Old Church Cemetery in Cove, County Cork, Ireland, an ocean away from the soundstage where he spent 1 season. Tom Poston, who played Russell's father Floyd in a recurring role, died of respiratory failure on April 30th, 2007, at age 85. He is buried at Hillside Memorial Park in Culver City, California. Peggy Rea rests at Santa Barbara Cemetery, 90 miles from the studio where she played Gene Kelly for 5 years. Walter Olkewicz was cremated, his ashes held by his family in a location they chose not to make public. Jon Paul Steuer has no documented resting place at all. One grave in Ireland, 2 cemeteries in California, a family's private ashes, and one person the public cannot find. Dave Thomas is 76 in Malibu. Brett Butler is 68 in Los Angeles. Casey Sander is 69 and still booking work. Julie White is 64 and still winning awards in New York. The Sprouse twins are 33, the same age Jon Paul Steuer was when he died. The cast of Grace Under Fire is scattered across the country, some of them above ground and some beneath it, and the show that connected them has not aired a new episode in 28 years.